It is 8 a.m. and I would like to call the May 10th, 2022 Whatcom County Public Utility District Commission meeting to order. And the first thing on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. So everyone that's here in person, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The next item is the approval of the agenda. Are there any proposed changes to the agenda?
I have none.
Okay,
I'll make a
then
motion to approve the agenda.
Great.
So,
Second.
I guess we don't need an motion or no?
It's fine. We can, so there's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Great. The next item is the consent agenda, the approval of the meeting minutes from April 26th and the approval of claims for May 10th.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda as it reads.
A second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. Thank you. So next we're moving on to public comment. And it doesn't look like we have any hands up. So we will also offer a public comment period at the end of the meeting. So seeing no hands, I will close public comment. And then we will move on to old business. So the first item under old business is the broadband program update. Is that going to be Andrew?
That'll be Andrew.
Great. Welcome, Andrew.
Good morning. I hope everyone can hear me okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, good to be here, commissioners. Brian, good to see everyone. Just to kick things off, just want to start by saying that the port and the PUD have been working very collaboratively. It's been a really great experience, and we're working better, I think, than ever before. And we're at a really good stop, what I guess you could call a stopping point now to celebrate our joint successes and share with the community where we are with the funding we've already received. And then we also, we think it's a good opportunity to share with the community where we're going and where we want to target for some of these grants that are coming up. So what we'd like to do is have an open house, what we're calling a broadband project informational open house on June 7th from 5:30 to 7 p.m. at the Ferndale Chamber of Commerce. And the Ferndale Chamber has so graciously offered their space for us to use free of charge. We think that the attendees may exceed the capacity constraints for a space such as the commission room that you're sitting in now. So we were looking for something bigger, and the chamber is very, very nice to offer their larger space for this event. So I believe this requires commission action to call for a special meeting, which would give all of you the opportunity to attend, even if you were all there at the same time. Do we want to stop there and do that action, or do you want me to go through the rest of the report? And
Sure. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we call a special meeting for June the 7th from 5:30 to 7:30.
Do we need to specify the location, or is that?
At the Ferndale Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you. I'll second that.
Oh, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 The motion carries. Thank you.
thank
Andrew, do you
you.
want to continue?
Sure, I'll be brief here, but again, thank you. Invite everyone that you know. We really do want to get the word out about where we are and where we're going. So looking forward to seeing all of you there. Some more updates. Petrocor will be on site this week. They're helping us with our route drives we've talked a lot about, and a lot of mapping, coming to the conclusion of the mapping effort we've been talking about. And that will help us really define the project area for these upcoming grant dollars. And we have at the end of this week on Friday, we have a internet service provider meeting, which is part of the minimum requirements under our CURB, or the Community Economic Revitalization Board, who granted us the feasibility study dollars. Part of those requirements is to have a meeting with your local internet service providers. And so that's what we'll be doing on Friday. And they'll come and it's kind of like the open house that we want to have, but this time it's just for the internet service providers, and we'll share with them what projects have been funded. They can lease, you know, what they can lease, and we'll talk about where we're planning to go. And it's really to help us work collaboratively with the ISPs, and so that when we apply for grant dollars, the ISPs already know where we're heading, and the idea is to limit any kind of challenges because we've already discussed the projects with them. And if there were to be any challenges, we could talk about those before putting in an application. So that's the idea there. So a lot moving on that part. PatchCore is helping us get through those minimum requirements for CURB, and then kicking over to the NOAANET. Oh, go ahead.
I've got a question, Andrew, about the ISP meeting. So who is coming so far?
I believe it's all of our local ISPs have replied yes, that they will attend, which is really, I think, really exciting. So I think, well, actually, I think there's one that we have not heard from, so I will be following up with them. But for the most part, all of our local Bellingham internet service provider, Whatcom County internet service providers are attending. And we've also invited the internet service providers that I'm familiar with working down in Skagit, because they're local enough that we thought we should probably invite them as well. So
great.
That's.
And what about back when you first started in December, somebody from Google Fiber reached out to me and I passed that contact to you. Did we invite that representative from Google Fiber as well?
I'll look at the list to see who was invited. I know that if they're an existing operational provider in Whatcom County, those who were identified. So, but I will extend that if it hasn't been already to those folks. And as a follow-up to that, we have been meeting at the staff level with the Google Fiber folks, and those conversations are happening. Not anything too definitive to talk about today, but in a brief way to say it is they're very interested in leasing dark fiber on a large scale.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is part of this ISP meeting also going to be about the existing? I realize this is part of our CURB project that the PUD applied for, but will we be talking about the 3 projects that the port is leading and how to potentially become part of that network, since it is an open access network?
Yes, because it's publicly funded, there does have to be an open access component. So yes, we will be talking about those project areas, and at that time we'll dive into how any provider could jump on the port's existing funded project areas once it's built, because it is going to be open access, or under the funding agency it's required to be. So there'll be an opportunity for any internet service provider, whether local or not, to jump on the network.
Okay.
And so yes, that's what we will be discussing.
Okay. So that meeting is this Friday?
Yes.
The ISP meeting? Okay, great. Thanks for the update and for answering my questions. Atul has his hand up.
Thank you, Commissioner Grant. I wanted to ask about regarding coverage. Do we have that represent most of the
Volcano
service for Whatcom
Island
County?
internet. Hey, Atul, can you say that again?
Sure. Was my volume too low or too high?
And maybe you might want to turn your video off. I think there was a little bandwidth issue there.
Yeah, I was going to recommend turning the video off as well.
Okay, thank you. My question was this: do we have representation that represents most of the coverage of Whatcom County, namely Comcast, Lumen, and so forth, already confirmed for the event on June 7th?
Yes.
Okay. The second question is, it occurred to me, I wasn't aware of the Google Fiber contact. I'm glad that's happening. It occurred to me, and this is slightly related to other subjects under a broadband update, that one of the things that the PUD could do to support the interests of the public would be to make clear the financial aspects of the coverage in Whatcom County. Because if a Google Fiber knows that, for example, in some cases, people are paying $300 to $600 for gigabit type of service, that's the kind of thing that should perk their ears as far as a business opportunity. You know, this is also addresses a focus of mine, which is I'm really delighted that we're working on the unserved, but I want us to continue to figure out ways to support the people that are underserved or poorly served. And one of the ways to do that might be to help elucidate the competitive opportunity for new entrants into our marketplace. And I didn't think about it until now, this broadband event that we're doing, it might be an excellent opportunity to attract new entrants. And the more new entrants that come into Whatcom County, well, obviously I would assume that the public will benefit. I think that's probably a fair assumption. And so I'm just thinking about this opportunity of this event to really attract new entrants into the marketplace. And I wonder if what kind of, it's worth thinking about how to be welcoming to new entrants. That's all.
Yes, I agree with that. Because of the open access nature, any provider who may be interested in entering this market could have an opportunity to learn about the infrastructure available to them to lease and deliver services. So I concur, I agree. Any other questions before I move on? Just I have one last thing to mention, and then
Peter Fotto has his hand up, Andrew, so let's hear from him.
Yeah, thank you. I just had a question. Is this a staff level meeting only? I'm just wondering for notice purposes, is this a staff level meeting only, Andrew?
Yes. I think it was, yep, Commissioner Grant who put me in contact with Angela Bennick, if I'm pronouncing that correct, with Kitsap PUD. She'll be here on June 14th to provide us with an overview of their LUD model, or their local utility district model. So we'll meet before the presentation, get our ducks in order, and just wanted to let you know that as a follow-up from last time, we did get that slated for June 14th, and we've talked to Brian, and we'll make sure we have enough time on the agenda for them to provide us with an overview of their LUD model. Oh, I forgot to mention, we also did meet, we had our kickoff meeting with NOAANET last week as well, and went through how we're gonna fit what they're working on in with the larger study itself. And again, they're gonna take the polygon areas that we've identified, and they're gonna overlay what's called a PON network, or a passive optic network. So they'll apply a design engineer over that polygon area and provide us with maps and financials and a pro forma for a retail publicly owned network if we were to be interested in providing services over that infrastructure. And so we think we'll get a really good stopping point, or a first blush by the end of June, hopefully sooner than that, but lots of things that are outside of our control, like getting data and things like that. So wanted to give you an update on that. I think that's everything. I'll kick it over to Brian if I missed anything, or to wrap up the broadband report.
I would just elaborate a little bit, Andrew, on the report that's going to be prepared by NOAANET and the other entity. Just contrast what they're each bringing to the table. Sure. So Petrichor is kind of the umbrella, so to speak. They're kind of on the hook, if you will, for giving us a final report. And what that means is we'll have
outreach components. There's a whole list of minimum requirements for the study, such as outreach to constituents. We're working on that now. They'll provide us with also financials and pro forma of infrastructure only or a wholesale leasing option if we wanted to go that route, as well as what's called an IRU route, which is what the Port of Bellingham has already implemented. So they'll review all of that. And how we get to that point is by identifying an area or areas around the county that are unserved or underserved, primarily to target potential grant funding that's coming up. So we'll have all that under the Petrichor umbrella. And then what we're doing is we're asking NOAANET to take a look at these areas that we have found to be unserved or underserved and provide them with that polygon area. And what they're going to do is apply an engineer design network over that. So what we'll have is a map that will tell us an engineer design for what's called a passive optic network. And I won't get into all that right now, but the important piece is that we'll have a network design that we can then apply financials and a pro forma on top of that, all geared towards retail publicly owned. And then we can decide as a team here the path forward that makes sense for us and our constituents with how we want to go. And that'll all be wrapped up into one report that we'll have. And so we've had our kickoff meeting with NOAANET. We've been meeting for a couple of weeks now with Petrichor. And so at the end of it, we'll have a nice report that will put both of these very great firms, Petrichor and NOAANET's heads together, both working on their core competency, which Petrichor is open access, dark fiber, wholesale leasing. NOAANET is retail, publicly owned municipal network and other things. But that's really, I think, the value of having both teams on board for us so we can make a really good informed decision.
Good, thank you for that.
So I have a quick question. Will the report from NOAANET include estimates for staff costs if we were to pursue retail, including, what a billing system would cost, marketing costs, all of that, so we have a full picture of what the costs would be, not just the engineering side of things?
Right, yes. When I say,
Okay.
yeah, pro forma to look at all of that for, yes, thank you
Okay.
for elaborating on that in more detail. Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah, we'll probably see
Commissioner-
things that we didn't even think about. Like, oh, right, you should probably consider that for a retail, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, and I have heard with retail, many cities that are pursuing this vastly underestimate marketing costs. So,
Right.
if you're in a competitive environment. So looking forward to seeing that report. Commissioner Deshmani, you had your hand up a few minutes ago. Did you still want to?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I just wanted to provide the group an update to the last City of Bellingham. I'm addressing at the last two City of Bellingham Broadband Advisory Group meetings. So of course, there's the Broadband Advisory Group, and then there's a survey that was contracted to a company called Magellan, and then a report that was contracted to a company called Magellan Advisors. And so the group has gone through a process of defining definitions. I've already explained that, how they're defining the various elements of broadband service, and implied in those definitions in the subsequent discussion is what, so there are some goals. And almost concurrently to that, the survey results have come in. The survey had 1,500 respondents approximately. What those survey results, which need to be interpreted further, probably, but the high level output of that is that in general, there is access to broadband throughout the city, mostly like between 91 and 95% already have, megabit type of service. It's still, depending on the testing methodology, would be less than the 100/20. But those are problems that can be solved by improved access rather than, increased availability rather than access. Access kind of implies, do you have the right kind of wire going by your residence? And availability is, do you afford it? And do you have the right kind of connection going into your house, or the right setup at your house, or the right service plan to meet your needs? So the problem is more about people having that. And that's what the survey elucidates, is that there's a shortage of actual data services going to people's homes on occasion. Probably a significant number, it could be 10%, could be 20%, who are getting significantly less data than they need. But those problems can be solved not necessarily don't require the building of new fiber. It requires improved service, and how that improved service is delivered remains to be seen. That's kind of what the survey is suggesting. The survey results aren't available to members of the group because of concerns over personal information. I'm trying to figure out what can be made available so people can do their own analysis. Perhaps I'm hoping that we can get that kind of access to our staff, like Andrew, so Andrew can do analysis of those survey results. So I just wanted to bring that up about the survey. The other subject, the third subject to update you on is the report. So the report's out. I emailed it to Andrew, and maybe Andrew can email it out to the commissioners, if you don't mind. The study basically looks at two things. It looks at what it would cost to build a citywide, brand new duplicative fiber network where every residence in the city had direct fiber to the home. And they estimated that cost to be 400 and something million. And it's not a bad number to know, but just as a comment, I don't know if anybody asked that question, frankly. It's certainly no one on the advisory group asked that question, or as a consensus, we asked for that to be the central focus or the biggest focus of the study. Nonetheless, they answered that question. And of course, that makes that the size of the financial investment makes it be something that is daunting, and the consultant, Magellan Advisor, said they don't recommend pursuing that pathway. And I don't disagree with that conclusion, but I'm not sure that we needed to go through that exercise to explore a possibility that is so extreme and probably not consistent with what the advisory group was asking for. The second thing they looked at, a little bit more interesting. Sorry, go ahead, Christine.
Okay, so a tool would that option is essentially analogous to what Anacortes is doing. Is that true?
I would say it's not analogous. There is in very profound ways that it's not analogous, but I get your point. The answer is yes and no. Yes, it's analogous in terms of the end result is direct fiber to the home provided by the city. Yes, in that way it is the same, but except in the case of Anacortes didn't have had a very weak ISP presence. Anacortes is much smaller, and Anacortes had decided to pursue it in stages, and hit only a portion of city residents, and is not planning to serve all of Anacortes city residents.
Okay.
At least not yet. I mean, eventually they might, but there's still a ways down the road before they serve the whole city. So, just to clarify, and one of the things that make it a little, one of the many reasons that make this a little bit unattractive for the city of Bellingham is because, you know, you're overbuilding lines that have already been built. And so what the goal is competitive service pricing, not necessarily to own all the wires. And a public presence can help that, but public presence doesn't require it own everything to get to a new competitive equilibrium. We have a competitive equilibrium, which is based on only a few participants providing most of the service. A new equilibrium can be achieved with a variety of actions that don't require a kind of a complete takeover of the data service delivery in the city of Bellingham. So the other option, is there any further question on that? The other option is that they looked at was to take the existing city of Bellingham fiber network, which by the way includes the fiber that the PUD built many years ago, and start investing in it, to create a new department at the city of Bellingham to manage it and to start investing in it, and go for some anchor customers, public sector and private sector, and gradually grow the fiber network that way to provide another option to a portion of the city of Bellingham, obviously the portion that's close to existing public works facilities that are currently served by the city's city owned fiber network. And that was an idea that was discussed with not a lot of depth in the report. So it's the implication there is this is a follow-on study is needed to look at that possibility. So that's kind of a summary. I don't want to go too much into it because I've only looked at the report once, and I want to read it in more depth, and I want to have more discussions, and I want to understand what it's about. But I wanted to share where things are at the city. And if there's other questions of where things are at the city, I'd be glad to try to help answer those too.
Well, thanks, Commissioner Deshmani. Andrew did forward the report to us late last week, and I started looking at it, and we'll definitely have some questions. And I guess maybe the best thing to do would be to send them to you, Andrew. And then when is the next meeting, Commissioner Deshmani? The next advisory group meeting?
I'm looking and it looks like, wow, looks like June 7th is the big day.
Oh, funny. Okay.
'Cause it's the
Well,
first
so
Tuesday of the month, so I guess I won't be at. I mean, I have to pick one or the other, and obviously for me, the priority has to be, since I'm the PUD's representative, priority for me for June 7th is going to the BAG meeting. Of course, the BAG
Okay.
meetings are recorded, so maybe I could, anyway, it's something to think about. And maybe I could two-time a little bit. So,
but if we have questions, we should try to channel them towards the city of Bellingham well in advance of June 7th, because they'll be addressing the draft report at that June 7th meeting. Is that correct?
right, and you can send them directly to the city of Bellingham, or you can, I'll be glad to deliver them, or it would just copy me as well so that I have a ability to make sure those questions get addressed.
Okay. Okay. Great. Thanks for the update.
Yeah, I'm not delighted. Let me just be really clear. I don't want to be too negative, but I'm not delighted with the with the study. And one of the things I had raised that didn't get addressed in the survey was when you do survey work, it's important to communicate to the users of the data or the world. What is the scope of the response and how representative is this response to what the community's actual demographics are? And that work was not done. And I raised it several times throughout the process. And so I'm concerned about the work, but I think, we're smart, we're all smart people. We can figure out how to make the best of what we have.
Possibly getting into too much detail here, but I did just in my initial review of the report already, I was confused about the one mention of the Whatcom County PUD. In the conclusions and recommendations section, it said there are other active providers and listed the Whatcom County PUD as focusing on underserved areas. And I mean, my understanding at this point is that we're not actively serving anyone right now. And all of our polygons that we're focused on, Andrew, are any within the city limits?
No, I was
Okay.
also concerned with where they had mentioned us in the report. They did say it's draft, so that would be something that might be helpful to provide feedback. No, we're not serving anyone. We don't have assets in the city of Bellingham.
Yeah, that was a red flag for me too. So Andrew, I don't know who should flag that for them, but not accurate.
I can call him.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the least of my worries. Sorry.
Well, that was
Errata.
all I saw on my first pass.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I'm glad you caught the errata, but that's the least of my worries.
before we move on, I had one last thing that's broadband related. I'm going to a Whatcom Council of Governments meeting tomorrow. And I wanted to hear from both Andrew and Commissioner Deshmani about any progress on a countywide dig once policy, and if there's anything that I can do in my role on the COG to try to elevate that discussion.
If I recall, when I raised the issue of dig once, last year when I was representing on the COG, the COG really wanted the county to take a leadership role in that, and that's kind of what's happening. Kaylee and I are meeting again this week to talk about countywide dig once. And then as far as actual language or policy language, I know there's no progress on that. But if you can figure out a way to, if the COG is telling you that they want to help make that happen, then I think that is a really a good thing, because they have a lot of access to countywide plans for roads. And yeah, so I think that's a good thing.
Okay, well, I think Council Member Galloway is also on the council, sits on that Council of Governments board. So maybe I just want to make sure we're all synced up on how we're approaching that. So
if I may, you're making me think about something, and if I can just share that. And that one of the things that I'm glad you're bringing this up, because one of the things that you might be able to do is to gauge interest among COG board members in supporting a dig once policy.
okay.
In being a cross-government entity, COG is in a unique place to be a champion of a dig once policy and send a clear message to staff at all the local governments that this is something that needs to happen. Because
Okay.
there's a lot of complexity in Dig Once policy
Yeah.
and pulling it off correctly. And one of the reasons that we don't have Dig Once policy, because it's just, you know, who's telling staff that this needs to happen?
It does seem more complex than, once you start thinking it through, it is pretty complex. But I would be happy to talk with Bob and see if we could get a Dig Once discussion on a future agenda. And like you said, see if we can get some support for it across, you know, the cities that are involved in that.
That's wonderful.
Okay. All right, well, keep us posted on anything you're doing with the at the county council level.
Yeah, okay, on the meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Andrew, anything else that's broadband related?
Not right now. No, I think in the weeks to come, we'll be dumping a lot more information on you. So I'm excited about that, but I think we're at a good stopping point today.
Okay. Commissioners, ready to move on to the next agenda item? Great. Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks, everyone. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Okay. So the next item on the agenda is the WPUDA policy positions discussion. And so this is under old business because we've talked about, this is specifically the energy policy positions discussion, which stemmed from a list of questions that George Kahn, the executive director of WPUDA, sent to members of WPUDA's energy committee. And so far, the energy committee at WPUDA has only had a discussion about one of the questions. But I felt that in my role on the energy committee, rather than just speaking for myself, I wanted to write down responses to the questions that reflected our entire commission and the expertise of our staff. And so we have a draft letter in the agenda packet. So if you're joining us online, that should be posted online. So just wanted to have some, you know, I know commissioners, you've both been able to look at it, but I wanted to have some time for discussion. And also just wanted to mention that in thinking through this letter, I also spoke with State Representative Alex Rammel, who represents the 40th district and has worked on a lot of the legislative bills related to the topics in these energy policy questions. And so he was particularly helpful on the questions kind of related to the Okeson versus Seattle City Light questions, because there has been an attorney general's requested opinion on that issue. So just wanted to open the floor up for discussion, and then we do have a recommended action for this letter since we'll all be signing it. Do you have anything to add, Brian?
Not at this time, Commissioner, other than the fact that Commissioner Grant took input from both Chris Humminger and myself in drafting the letter. The other thing is I think it's a nuanced response. From time to time, WPUDA will query its members and ask their position on different issues that is either before the legislature or they want to raise with the legislature. And it's been my experience, at least, that sort of the just say no to a particular initiative doesn't get you a lot of legislative support. Whereas if you have a nuanced response and you try to address issues, it tends to have more clout. So I think with that, I'll stop.
I in my paper packet, I didn't have a copy of the letter. Could someone direct me to where that letter?
It was emailed out late, Commissioner Desmani.
Okay, and what
Didn't we
if I-
email it last week?
I'm just looking for what day. I'll find it. I remember seeing an email like that.
Thursday. And yesterday.
Thank you.
Commissioner Murphy?
I have read the letter, and of course, I've always supported the Washington Public Utility District Association, as we call WPUDA. But I do believe that they need not take a kind of stance of saying no. Brian and I were just sharing this week where Washington State Building Code Council voted 11-3 to adopt the strongest, most climate friendly in the country to produce towards clean electricity for space and water heaters and everything else. And I think we need to be involved in all these things. So taking the stances they took was probably not in the best interest of all PUDs. That makes sense. But Brian spent a lot of time talking to me, or I talked to Brian a lot, I should say. So I appreciate, Brian, what you shared with me. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I you know.
Well, Commissioner Dashmani, why don't you take a few more minutes to look at it? I mean, do you have any questions?
Yeah, thank you. I'll take a few more minutes.
Okay.
I might add that the WPUDA has not taken an official position at this point. They're looking for the members for guidance. So it's, I think, important to weigh in and help shape their position.
Yeah, and I think we need to get it to them soon too, because they're meeting. They do have meetings soon to work on strategic planning with their the committee, the kind of, at kind of the committee level, they're going to be putting together the strategic direction that will inform our legislative positions.
One of the other things that Commissioner Grant and I discussed, and it's subject to discussion, but does the commission want to develop any kind of process or procedure when things like this come up, and you're weighing whether or not to take an official position on whatever the issue is, whether it's WPUDA or something else? How do you do that? You only take a position if you have consensus, or you just use a nod of the heads if say Commissioner Grant wanted to submit comments, just what process do you want to use? Or or not? You want a formal procedure or just do it like you're now, just discussion and collaboration?
But when we take these positions with WPUDA, so we each sit on different boards. And I've always thought that we represented our PUDs at that board when we were assigned that. So the ones I go to, I feel I represent the board. I'm trying to always remember what, feel. So, but I do feel it's different than when you send a letter. The letter sends a pretty strong statement. I like to see a lot of discussion on a letter. And I like it when we should be unified. That when we send something, then we sign it, that means that we all agree to it. So I like the discussion, but I feel that we probably should have spent more time. It sounds like all tools just learning about the letter himself. So, and I
I
saw.
mean, I would be clear that it could be wasn't able to find it, but thanks for Ann for sending it. And it could be a little bit of a something that slipped for me. But I wanted to speak to two things about the letter. And one thing is that the questions that are stated, and I just finally got the words to put my feelings about the questions that came from WPUDA. Is I feel like now I'm realizing they're loaded questions. They're all loaded questions. They create a scenario that in some cases hasn't even been proposed. And I don't know if I like answering other people's loaded questions because it encourages me to entertain a scenario that maybe isn't even real. And so, for example, banning natural gas plants. I could see banning construction of new natural gas plants. But okay, so in that hypothetical situation that such a ban is created, I would actually not support that because one of the things that there's being explored with natural gas is a way to make synthetic natural gas that is using CO2 from the air and hydrogen that's green to make a synthetic natural gas. So there's other things that perhaps to support renewable production, which is intermittent. Natural gas could be used as actually an enabler. It could be a supplemental source of energy, perhaps a hybrid natural gas and green hydrogen power plant that was use a combination of fossil and renewable inputs to produce something that maybe in net is quite green. So I wouldn't want to preclude utilities from being able to engineer their own solutions and decide that a particular chemical, which is methane, which is natural gas, CH4, is always a bad thing. So that's one example. But I do appreciate this discussion, and I'm heartened to know that Chris has reviewed it in detail and is ready to sign the letter. And I don't know what to advise at this point, but I don't feel comfortable committing to sign this letter in its current form.
Do you have edits that you would like to make so that we can? That's part of why we sent it out last week, was to hopefully get edits. So that
yeah, and I'm sorry about that. So I could make it a priority in my time to get edits out this week.
Okay, we're probably gonna miss the Waputa meetings that are happening next week then, because we're gonna have to do we're gonna have to take action then at our next meeting.
Well, I
on
didn't
May
know there's
24th.
Waputa meetings next week on what subject?
They're doing, so my understanding is that it's not the committee chairs are meeting to begin working on strategic planning. So I was trying to get this to them before that.
Okay. I remember that being raised at the Energy Committee meeting, and George gave the impression that the work on this and the strategic planning could occur concurrently rather than that it was necessary to have this done before. But I think I trust your concerns about that. And perhaps there's a way of communicating that we're actively working on it. And here's a draft that we have, but it's not our final draft. I don't know, perhaps that's an option. But you know, at least to let the committee chair know that this is our thinking, and maybe don't go too far down the road without having further discussions in the Energy Committee. Just knowing that we're working on something that's a pretty big challenge to the current PUD Waputa positions might be enough of a communication for next week.
Okay, are there any edits that we could talk through right now that would get you to a place where you're comfortable, or do you feel like you need to have more time?
Well, one thing that occurred to me, thanks for bringing that up, is that the language on electrification that you and Chris have drafted is fine with me. And that's the one issue that was discussed at the Energy Committee. So we could say, well, we've deliberated on this subject and this is what we think on electrification, and recognize the fact that the PUDs haven't had a chance to discuss the next several elements. And we are going to we're working on that right now and look forward to the discussion at the Energy Committee. But we have a differing, I mean, we have, here's our thoughts on the electrification issue. That could be one way. And I would
Okay, well,
support
why
the
don't,
language that's under electrification.
why don't we do that then? I mean, if we're all comfortable with question 1, and then you can submit your edits so that we can be prepared for May 24th with questions 2 through 3. Because a lot of work did go into the rest of the letter, and I don't want to just, throw it away. And I think it is important that we weigh in on these issues. So I would really like to get the rest of the letter submitted to them, but I think it would be timely to get question 1 back to them, and we can edit this slightly and just say, we'll be providing responses to the rest of your questions at the end of May, or on May 24th.
Okay, that sounds great. And yeah, that sounds, so I'll focus on addressing the natural gas issues this week and make some suggestions on our language there.
Okay, great. Are you comfortable with that, Mike?
So who's going to actually, between you and O'Toole, who's going to send his question or his concerns to who?
Well, we're just going to submit the response to this first question to Waputa. And then we're going to send a second letter so that O'Toole has time to edit the rest of the letter or weigh in on it.
I could support the first question. Okay, yes, I could support that first one.
So if we're gonna take recommended action, we need to just say approve the commission letter with the edit of only providing the response to question 1.
Yes. I would support that.
Would anyone like to entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion that the commission approve and support the language that's drafted to the first question on electrification in a response to Wapruta Energy Committee policy positions.
Second that.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we'll get that changed and sent out today to Wapruta. And this will, then we'll put this again on the agenda under old business for our May 24th meeting. And it'd be great if we could get any additional edits back, you know, at least a week before that meeting. Is everybody ready to move on to the next agenda item under old business? Okay, hearing no objections, we'll move on to the Washington State Public Works Board request for information discussion.
Commissioner Gismondi, do you want to take the lead on that?
Yes, I could. So Brian, the final version that you sent to Chris and Chris supported, has that been sent to the commissioners?
No, that has not, because it was a work in progress. As you remember, the commission previously approved submittal of the form, which is in reality just a request for information from the Washington State Public Works Board. And so, no, that has not been, it was back and forth, and I thought we were going to wait till Chris got back.
Right.
Chris is waiting, yeah. So it's nothing that, there's no hard timeline on this.
And there's no action item today. I'm just
No
wondering,
action item.
would you mind sending that out to the other two commissioners just so they have it?
No.
And
I'll send it out today. And I will summarize, it's really, the Public Works Board was asking for input on obstacles or challenges for utilities and others to place new infrastructure, whether electric or water, and particularly in support of clean energy or clean fuel projects. Commissioner Gismondi and General Manager Chris Heminger basically crafted some language. Commissioner, and it really kind of falls into two camps as I see it. One is addressing what can be done to support new technology, and Commissioner Gismondi identified green hydrogen as a fit, really, technology that needs support, particularly fitting for Cherry Point. And the other thing, the other tenor of the discussion was all the things that are hindering the placement of infrastructure currently. And it's really the pre-development activities that need to occur before a developer can build a project. And it's everything from, it's permitting, it's acquiring land to build your project on. It's, in the case of electric utilities, any project, particularly a clean energy project or even a clean fuel project that may require a large amount of energy, require the utility to interconnect to the grid. It's, excuse the pun, but it's gridlock. You submit a request to interconnect, and it may be years before you get to the point of interconnection. And I had sent out here recently an article to the commissioners that in the state of California, the statistics show it can take as long as 10 years to get a clean energy, a generation project online. And so in the response to the Public Works Board, we're going to identify some of those issues. Those are the challenges. Because what we're seeing is in terms of implementing clean fuel or clean energy projects, the developers have the money. They have substantial financial backing to build the projects. The problem for them is the risks and uncertainty of getting to the point where you can actually build the project. It's a years-long process. The amount of money you have to fund up front is uncertain. The timeline, there aren't specific steps. So there's a lot of challenges in just bringing a project to fruition. So that was part of the response to Public Works or the Works Board. And so I'll send that out, Commissioner Desmani, to the other commissioners, and we can discuss it more when Chris gets back.
Great, thank you. And just to share that I spoke to people at the Public Works Board about this, and they were delighted to get our response. And I checked in on the timing, and they were delighted to get our response in the timing that talked about, after our next meeting. So in addition to that, the person from the Public Works Board, Maria Jawad is her name, talked about other areas that the Public Works Board wants to support, and she talked specifically. I was curious about our involvement in water issues and water, an area, Brian, that she said that she's also interested in and wanted to know our interest was the issue of recycling water as an area where there's opportunity for innovation and to increase resiliency. I said, absolutely, that's something that we're interested in. I told her that the PUDs co-funded some studies like the one at Coldstream Dairy to reclaim water. So yeah, that was definitely an area of that the Whatcom PUD had participated in before and would welcome that. And she also said the Public Works Board recognizes that part of whenever you add the word innovative is it's a little bit different risk profile to the project. And an awareness that that one of the things they're trying to do is carve out, the reason they're trying to carve out a separate fund to deal with this under the Public Works Board is because it needs to be managed separately because the risk profiles are going to be higher. Because anytime you're attempting to do something for the first time, likelihood of failure is slightly higher. So anyway, these are things that I just wanted to share back to the commission about this. What we're talking about here in this agenda item is that we're providing information back to the Public Works Board to help them craft a new category of funding for innovative infrastructure. And it sounds like what's on their mind is very compatible with what the kinds of things we've done or would hope to do.
So you'll send us more information, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, thank you to both of you for bringing that to our attention, and we'll also include that then under new business in our old business in our next meeting. Is that okay? Great. Well, let's move on to the general manager report.
Short and sweet. The general manager has no report today. Nothing to update the commission.
Okay. Well, let's move on to commissioner reports. Who wants to go first? Commissioner
I,
Murphy?
yeah.
Commissioner Deshmani?
I think I covered my updates. Obviously, the stuff I did out of commission with the Public Works Board and then the broadband, City of Bellingham broadband update. I also have a special, just informing the commission that there's a special meeting happening regarding the EDI tomorrow. Just FYI, and I don't have a lot else to report. I think that covers it for now.
I have not attended any meetings. However, I continue to go around talking to people in our area and asking questions. I'm going to be happy to report that there will be a open house on the broadband. But who would I ask? Would that be Andrew about who's going to make this presentation? Because obvious the commissioners are not. And what kind of presentation would it be so I could tell the public, so they are aware of what they could expect. Does anybody have any?
Andrew, are you still there? Yeah, there you are.
Good question. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, yes. The idea is not to have an elaborate, presentation or anything like that. We'll probably just introduce staff at the port and the PUD, and of course any commissioners or electeds who are in the room. And then what we plan to do is folks can meander throughout the space, and we'll have poster boards of the project areas. And because we have identified the staff that you could talk to or the electeds about the projects, you could go interact with them one-on-one or like that. So it is designed to be very informal, and you can go right up to a board or a map and see the project areas and then talk to someone about it, like myself or Gina from the port. So that's the idea, but no formal presentation will be provided.
There will not be like a committee or someone where people could ask questions to, or is it at each individual station or whatever you want to call it, that people go and talk to somebody? Because I think there's going to be a lot of questions, and it'd be nice if we could all listen and hear them instead of at different stations.
Okay, we'll take that feedback. Yeah, just right now in the planning phases, we've just thought about having it as people come up to folks involved with the projects and ask them questions like that. But it's helpful to hear your feedback if you think maybe we should pursue something else, like maybe a 5-minute presentation on questions that everybody can hear at once, and then mingle about. That might make a lot of sense too.
I agree. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I'll bring that back to the team and see what we can do to accommodate that. Thanks for your input.
Okay. Yeah, I think I've covered a lot of what I've been up to in other parts of our discussions. I guess I did want to say that we'll be doing strategic planning again on our May 24th meeting, our next meeting. And part of what I'm working on in preparation for that is a letter introducing the strategic plan, which is what we had in our last strategic plan, kind of summarizing where we're going and the work that we did. So I'll be hopefully, I hope to have a draft of that for our May 24th meeting. And then we should be getting some more direction from Jim Darling on how to prepare for that. But hoping that May 24th is another big push for all of us on strategic planning. So we can look at really having that fully wrapped up by early July or sooner. Yeah, that's it for me. Moving on to public comment. I do not see any hands raised. So seeing no hands raised, we will close public comment. And the next item on the agenda is an executive session. And I anticipate this will take 20 or 30 minutes. And no action is anticipated. So, oh, Peter, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, two things. Number one, good to identify the specific purpose for the executive session there as noted in the agenda. And then just make sure everyone has the Zoom link that I sent out yesterday. I want to make sure that's in
Yeah.
place.
Okay. Do you want me to like say the RCW?
Yeah, it's good to go ahead and note the
Oh, okay.
RCW and the
So we're-
specific purpose.
It's a very long RCW. So RCW 42.30.110.1G. And that's review / performance of a public employee. So again, no action is anticipated, and I think the estimate for this is about 20 minutes. So with that, we will close this meeting and move into executive session, and then we will be coming back to close this public meeting. Let's get started. Okay, hello, everyone. We just completed an executive session and there was no action. And so we will be closing the meeting. Thank you all for joining our meeting. The meeting is closed.